Hi everyone, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing all the books that I read in the month of August. Summer is coming to a close, which is crazy to think, but yes, it is. But that's okay because I did end up reading a lot in this final month of summer, and I even completed one of my yearly goals, so I'm really excited. So first we're going to be discussing the manga and then we'll get into the books. So first off, I was keeping up with some of my current manga series. I'm reading a couple different series and collecting them as new volumes come out, so that's what I did this month. So I have Witch Hat Kitchen Volume 4. This is a spin-off of Witch Hat Altair, which is one of my favorite new series. The anime is coming out and I've been rewatching the trailer for it so many times because I just love the art, the music. I'm so excited for it. Witch Hat Altair is set in a fantasy world. It's Seinen, which means it's an adult series, and it's following a group of kids, mainly focused in on one young girl named Coco, who is not born a witch, has been told that she can never be a witch because of this, but somehow it gets involved in the world of witches. And the spin-off is just like the cozy slice of life bits in between the regular series, which can get quite dark, so it's really nice to have this reprieve. And yeah, like it says, it's collecting food items, it's cooking, it's just sweet little moments. I really enjoy this. It has been such a great break to read this in between the rest of the series. The next series I was keeping up with was Apothecary Diaries Volume 12. This is another adult series following younger protagonist. Basically, Mao Mao is a apothecary, is from the red light district of her kingdom, but she somehow gets involved with court politics and court life, and she is solving these different mysteries and using her knowledge and apothecary skills to get her out of trouble. And I just really love this series. I really love Mao Mao. She's just such a great, fun character. If you really like smart protagonists, this is just a series for you. It's really good. Starting a new series, I actually have a manhwa, which is a Korean webtoon, basically, Korean manga, whatever you want to call it. And this is Father, I Don't Want This Marriage. I still like manhwa, but I haven't really read a lot of it in a while. But this was one of my standout series that I was reading when I was having a really big phase where all I was doing at night was just reading manhwa. And this falls into the genre of an isekai, villainess type story, which if you don't know, there's like basically this genre where the protagonist gets killed in our world and is transported into another world. That's what isekai means. But in this genre, there's also people that just get killed in their fantasy world and are reborn or have a chance to like restart their life. And most of the time, the character is the villainess or the villain of the story, somehow wronged in the story, and it's them coming to terms with the bad things they have done or trying to restart their life and be a better person. But what I really loved about this series and what really caught my attention is when this character wakes up and realizes that she's been acting out the villainess storyline, her major conflict is not just trying to get away from the drama that she caused and the bad stuff she caused. It's also about repairing a father-daughter relationship, and I just really love that father-daughter relationship. I really love seeing them come together. There was just something so heartwarming and like angsty about it. There's a couple different manhwas that have like a father-daughter reconciliation plotline, and this is just one of my favorites. I just really like those for some reason. Just like the found family aspects of a lot of these manhwas are just, those are the ones that really get me. Like I love the romance, obviously, that's probably why you're reading a lot of these, but it's just like when they get the family dynamics in there, it's so good. So yes, I always promised myself if this came out in English, I would at least buy the first volume of it because it is one of my favorites. It's one of my standouts. And so I was so excited when I saw it come in to the bookstore. Yeah, I might collect this series. I might just buy the first volume, but it was a really fun read. And then finishing up the manga, I actually have 4 volumes of Kami-sama Kiss, which is going to be 22, 23, 24, and 25, which means I have finally finished my reread or my first read in these later volumes of Kami-sama Kiss. If you don't know, Kami-sama Kiss is one of the more popular shoujo titles, and it is a paranormal fantasy, and it's following our main character of Nanami, who basically is a down on her luck, has nowhere to live, her house is foreclosed, her dad is missing and is probably not coming back, but she stumbles across a god in human form, and she takes on his duties of running his shrine and gains her own godlike powers. And in this shrine is a yokai named Tomoe, who very much does not want to deal with humans in general, and especially does not want to deal with her. While I didn't love this series as much as I did at a younger age, I thought the ending was particularly really strong. I really liked how it dealt with a lot of stuff. I would say that Tomoe's plotline is probably the strongest aspect of this. In a lot of ways, it's really his story of coming to understand and admire humans. And that's what I think my biggest problem stemmed from. I have some other pacing issues and like paneling issues, but the biggest fault I found with this series, I really wanted to focus on Nanami and her powers growing. And we're not dealing with the main plot. I feel like a lot of the plots are just kind of of goofy one-side stories, which I think is what the author wanted. But for me, I was just so interested in Nanami and her growing power, and we only get to see little snippets of her growing. I would have loved to see her really coming into powers more fully, instead of her kind of just using her shoujo power of, I'm a happy-go-lucky girl and I'll solve all problems with my happy demeanor because people are drawn to me because I'm a nice person kind of shoujo plot. So yeah, this is a 3-star series for me. It's solid. Again, the ending I felt was really, really strong, but overall it was okay for me. It was fine. Not my favorite, but I finished it and that's all that matters. So now we can get into the books that I read, and I think I'm gonna go from least favorite to favorite, starting off with Cryer's War by Nina Verlet. This is a young adult fantasy sci-fi duology. We are in this world where at one point in human history, humans created autonomous AI robot beings, basically like automatons, I think they're what they're called. No, they're called autome, but you know, steampunky robot. And the autome did not like how they were being treated, and so there was an uprising. They are now in charge, and humans are the subjected ones. And in comes our main two characters. We have Lady Cryer, who's basically the princess of this kingdom of autome. And then we have Isla, who is one of these oppressed humans that is working her way up through the court so that she can help the rebellion. I thought the history, the lore was interesting. I really liked a lot of the world building aspects. For me, this suffered on 2 points, mainly the love, romance, enemies to lovers plotline I felt was a little bit weak and a little bit rushed. For me, I just didn't understand. I understood why Cryer would be interested in Isla and her little attraction, but for me, I just did not understand Isla's hate to love kind of quickly evolving thing that happened. I felt like it should have been pulled out a little bit more. I personally would have liked it if Cryer was Cryer's kind of like a naive character. She's learning about the world and learning, oh no, people are oppressed, I should probably stop that. So I just feel like it would have been a lot more compelling if Cryer actually knew that Isla hated her to begin with. I don't know why, but is it really hate to love if the people don't know that they hate each other, you know, kind of a thing? So yeah, I understood Cryer a little bit, her attraction, but I did not understand Isla at all. And the other major thing is that the plot, I don't want to say wasn't nuanced or wasn't original, but it's just, I think personally, I'm just very tired of these YA books that have enemies to lovers plot lines and have like, oh no, one of them is the oppressor, one of them is the oppressed. Not that it can't be done well, I'm very tired of like these kind of plot beats that I've seen over and over and over again, which I don't feel like are completely successful. So the writing was good, but the enemies to lovers romance, especially Cryer, was really grating on my nerves. They really annoyed me for no reason. And even with the plot, I was just like, okay, small rebellion, blah, blah, blah. I've seen this 100 times. It's not bad. It just wasn't for me because I feel like I've read a lot of this before. But I am still gonna read the sequel because I want to know what happens. Again, I thought the writing was good, so I have faith that the sequel could be better. But yeah, there's that. But getting into my next read, I have 2 books and I'm going to talk about them together because they are a series, and that is Boyfriend Material and Husband Material by Alexis Hall. These are adult contemporary romance books set in London, and the first book is a fake dating plotline. Basically, our main character, Luke, is kind of a disaster gay, and his parents are pop stars, and because of his father's upcoming fame again, he's really being dragged by the paparazzi and the media, and he has kind of a old playboy persona, party boy persona, but that isn't really him now, but he's still getting caught up in the press junket as that type of person. Meanwhile, Oliver Blackwood is a stuffy, uptight lawyer, but he has a family occasion coming up and he does not want to go to that event alone, and so they work out a fake dating thing. So it's like disaster chaos kind of main character with the stuffy, uptight love interest, and that plot just like gets me every time. I love Alexis Hall's writing. I just feel like they cover these tropes and plots in a way that's still fun while also adding a lot of nuance and just adding a lot of really interesting elements to relationship dynamics. Yes, they're a little corny. Yes, I feel like Alexis Hall really relies on this kind of like disaster main character person a lot. Again, I like their stories. They're so comforting. This is like what I'm looking for in like just a fun, breezy, contemporary romance novel. And I'm trying to read their entire backlist, so it was really fun to read this, especially because I feel like it's their most well-known and their most read books. But yeah, I really like this. I gave this a 4-star. This is the sequel. It has to do with them going to a bunch of weddings. It's cute, but I personally, for this one, I would have liked to have had the book from Oliver's perspective. I felt like this story really wrapped up Luke and his problems, and so it kind of felt like they were just dragging up old stuff into this one, and I felt like it would have been a lot better if it it was Oliver's perspective because it seems like a lot of the issues are him learning about himself and dealing with stuff, so it would have been better if it was from his perspective and it was his journey to kind of complement the first book. But overall, it was fun. I would recommend it. I had a good time. And for my final book, I read A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross. This I'm giving like a 3.75 4 stars to. This is an adult fantasy series. It is a duology, so this is the first book. But this is a Scottish-inspired setting, and we're following 4 different characters that live on this island. This island is divided. There is a magical curse on one half of the island. These 2 tribes that live on the island are kind of in conflict with each other, but we're really only following one side of the island, and we're following 4 different main characters. One of them is an herbalist who is married to the king's guard, and one of them is the heiress to this island, who is the childhood enemy of the first character we meet, who is a young man who has been on the mainland, which is basically England, who has been training to be a bard and is coming back because he was given this letter that basically he needs to come back and fix this thing. He finds out that the thing in question is these girls have gone missing, and so these 4 people are working together and separately to try and figure out what has been going on with these missing children, and from there they are unraveling the secrets and the lore of the island. I feel like a lot of people discuss like the island, the curse, the like 2 sides kind of a thing, but that really isn't, at least what this first book is really about all these characters in relationship with each other and in relationship with the other people on their half of the island, and the mystery and folklore surrounding everything and the magic. I've also heard this book described as really poetic writing. I personally don't think so. I think it is very elegant, very beautifully crafted writing, but I wouldn't say it's super purple. In fact, one of the things that I wish this book did was sit a little bit more in descriptions, especially around magical scenes. But overall, this book is slow. It has really great characters, again, and really interesting dynamics with each other. I really loved that aspect of it, so I really enjoyed this book. Like I said, one of the problems is that I wanted it to sit more in the descriptions of everything. I thought it could have been a little bit more purple, especially because the world and the lore and everything was so interesting. The most egregious part about this novel to me is the head hopping. Basically, we are following these 4 different characters, and for the most part, it does chapter breaks or scene breaks in between each character. So you're really only sitting with one character in a section and you know you're with that character. But when the characters start to get together and get closer to each other, the author will switch in between characters' heads in scene with each other, which I don't understand why the author did that, because they have proven that they are a really great writer, so I don't understand why they were making this mistake. Omniscient voice is possible to do. It is extremely difficult to do, and I don't think this book was set up to be omniscient, especially because we're really starting out sitting with one character, pausing, going to another place, and starting with a new character. To me, that is not omniscient perspective. And when you were in scene, I just don't feel like it's effective to switch between the heads of different people. It's possible, but it just wasn't effective or set up well in here. So I don't understand how that happened. I don't think that was good writing. But besides the head hopping, again, I really love the world. I love the characters. I love the dynamics. I'm excited to see what happens in the next book. I really want to know. So editing Courtney here, I realized I forgot a book. How could I forget this book when it was my favorite of the month? I blame it on reading it as an audiobook and not having a physical copy yet. But the final book that I read in the month of August was no other than Guards by Terry Pratchett. A few people have asked me to read Terry Pratchett over the years, and I just have never gotten to him. I just want to dive into his catalog and read a lot of what he's written, but I started with Guards because that's what everybody basically told me to do. One of the reasons I never started on Terry Pratchett's Worlds is because everybody has an opinion about where you're supposed to start, and it felt very complicated from the outside, but I loved it. Guards was incredibly charming. I feel like that's the best word to use. It's kind of that old 80s, 90s British humor, that very like fun quirkiness to it. So what's Guards about? Basically, you are set in this fantasy world, in this fantasy city of Ankh-Morpork, I think that's how you say it. And in this town, there is the Watchman, or I think it's the Night Watch, something like that. And it's basically these like 4 men that are down on their luck that are kind of like the last of this Watchman group, and they're just like not very competent. In this city, we have a new young man who is coming to find his destiny, who's joining the Watch, and at the same time, we have like this cult mysterious group that seems to be summoning a dragon, trying to make something happen in this world, and it's like all these fantasy tropes colliding, and these like very familiar story beats kind of flipped on their head and extended out. One of the funny things is like through the first like 30%, I'm like, I know what Terry's doing, I know how he's flipping things, but the book just keeps going and keeps going, and you're just like, where is this gonna go? Where is this ending up? But it was just so fun. I fell in love with the characters and the world. One thing that this book really reminded me of is that I really love when the fantasy world and almost like a character in its own right, I felt like that really added to the story. This book is from the 90s, so maybe there are a couple things that don't hold up entirely, but for the most part, it's just really, really fun, really funny, and I really want to read the rest of the Discworld books now. I'm really intrigued by his writing and his worlds, and I just had such a fun time reading it. And the other great thing is that because it's an older audiobook, it is done by a really, really fantastic narrator, and I just really loved what his narration brought to the story. It really felt like getting read an old fairy tale. If you have been a fantasy fan for a really long time and you need something really refreshing, I do highly recommend Terry Pratchett, just because he's going to be taking a lot of familiar things, flipping them on their head, changing things, extending things, and you never know what's going to happen next. And it's just really, really fun the way he plays with fantasy tropes. But if you don't like historical anachronisms, if you don't like things that like bring you out of the world a little bit, this book does that. It's, you know, very playful, so it is kind of poking fun at things and, you know, just doing silly things. So in that case, you might not like him, but I really enjoyed this first book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was just, the most operative word is charming. It was just incredibly charming. But yes, those are all the books that I read in the month of August. I would love to know what you read, what you enjoyed. Good stuff this month. Nothing that is an outstanding favorite yet, but I have hope, and I'm looking forward to my next month of reading, which is going to be the Magical Readathon. But yeah, that's everything I read this month. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys later, and happy reading!